You get the players to come out and wipe out.
Good morning and welcome to the Imperial Hotel in Blackpool for continued live coverage of the World 8-Ball Pool Championships. It's finals day today, and first of all, to get the agenda going, we've got the junior individual final. Daniel Hussain of England takes on the young man from Northern Ireland, Mccutcheon. Two great young players who've blitzed through some quality opposition to get to this final. Always exciting to get to your first world final. Be a big experience for both of these two players playing out in this arena for the first time. Alongside this, on the other side of the arena, we've also got the under-23 individual final taking place between Luke Gilbert of England and Jordan Synos of Ireland. Be providing live coverage of both of those this morning. Then following on from that, we'll have the men's team final, followed by the men's and ladies individual senior finals, which should be starting around 1 o'clock this afternoon. So it's Mccutcheon that's won the lag, and will get us underway in frame one. Not a perfect split there, but he's potted a ball, so that's the main thing. Normally these junior finals tend to be pretty high quality affairs and typically pretty attacking affairs. You occasionally get the odd tactical player come through, but it tends to be that most people, especially these days, start out as more attacking and the safety side of their game comes later on, so I think we can expect to see a pretty quick final here. Best of 15 frames this one, so first of these players to get to 8 will be lifting the world title. First look then at Daniel Hussain. In previous years we've seen a pretty high level of composure. So many high level junior tournaments these days that by the time you've come to this point in the World Championships you've played a lot of competitive pool, so although these players may be young, they're by no means inexperienced at this level. Not a bad opportunity here with reds. All the balls are theoretically in open positions. The two on the bottom right hand side though a little bit tied up, so not going to be that accessible unless he cannons into perhaps into one of those yellows to try and hold. Always nice to win the first frame in any final, particularly when you're not quite so used to playing out in this arena. That probably matters a bit less for the big names that we see every year who are used to it, but when it's your first time it's just nice to settle down. He's thrown in a slightly loose one there, just didn't quite get enough action on the cue ball. Looking to play with topspin to come on and off the left hand side cushion, but it's just left that slightly short. They're pretty vocal support, both of these Irish players. We've got a Northern Irish player at the table now, and over on the other side of the arena, a player from the Republic of Ireland, Jordan Synos, in the under-23 final. A few of their teammates down supporting. Well, how's that for a recovery shot? I said you often see some attacking pool in the junior final. Picked out a great shot there. Run out of attacking options at that point though. The only possibility with that ball would have been doubling it, but that would have been a low percentage shot and would have afforded no easy position onto the other red, so taking the sensible option. Now that the table's a bit tidier, this is a good chance for Daniel as well. It's always a bit of a problem in pool when you pot the first few of your balls and then miss later on in the clearance, because you tend to clear things up for your opponent. The only issue he's got here is the two yellows clustered together to the right of the back black. But they wouldn't be that difficult to cannon into. It's possible that the right hand one would go if you were at the right angle. It's just slightly overcomplicated that positional shot. Perhaps a case for just playing that a bit more gently and not trying to move the cue ball quite so much. Not too bad a situation for him still though, because it's fairly easy to play containing safety with the position of the two reds. Historically, success in these junior championships has been a pretty good precursor of success. We've seen a lot of players do well in the senior team and individual competitions that we've seen around over the years as juniors. Well, good effort there. That wasn't that far away. It's never quite a natural angle, that. Always looked like he was going to struggle to straighten it up enough, but came close in the end. So a little more difficult for Daniel now, because that red hanging over the middle pocket is potable from quite a range of angles, so to try and hide the keyboard is now going to be a more difficult shot than his last visit. So he managed to hide access to the one over the middle pocket, but it's left the long red. Either a tight cut into the middle or long to the far corner. Opts for the middle. The trouble is when you play them that way, if you leave them short, it's always going to be a foul. So 2 shots given away, no balls touching a cushion there. And this is the kind of opportunity that Daniel's really got to take advantage of. You're not going to be gifted many better opportunities in a World Championship final than 6 open balls with 2 visits to clear them in. Ideally wants to hold on to the second visit for as long as possible. Takes the pressure off, and also, if he doesn't come up with a better solution, will allow him to break out the 2 yellows to the right of the black. Looking at whether either of those yellows would pot off the red into the centre pocket. If they would, that would be quite handy, because it would be a way of potting them, and it would also open up the middle pocket. Let's put in another loose one though. That kind of shot you've really got to be getting. He's put himself under a lot of pressure now. And ironically, as we've seen so many times, the player ends up missing a fairly routine shot and then pulls out a much better one the next shot. So, back in reasonably good position now. Looks like the yellow to the right of the black will pot to the bottom right hand corner. Another bad miss though. It was a slightly odd miss of all the shots in this clearance. That was really a pretty routine one. Didn't even really seem to get quite perfect position. You could forgive a few nerves though. Sometimes take them a moment to settle at the beginning of any match, but particularly this one. It's also to make the observation that made with a number of these earlier matches in the day. I'm not sure that playing at 9 o'clock is something that many pool players are used to. Pool tends to be a sport that's played later on in the afternoon and evening, so sometimes it can take a little moment to wake yourself up and get into the spirit of it. The shot's gone slightly astray. The problem wasn't so much that shot as the previous one. He was trying to leave the ball that was hanging over the middle pocket into its logical pocket, which was that middle. Having to play it along to the corner just made the shot much harder. He's also been slightly unlucky that in playing that as a kind of shot to nothing, he's brought a yellow up. Well, this is a good effort. If that yellow goes past the red, this is a great opportunity. Played the sensible shot. If that didn't pot absolutely cleanly, there's absolutely no point playing it unless you were going to get as a pot, unless you were going to get a position on the other yellow. So did the right thing just to cover the pocket. Haven't quite got that tight enough. If you're going to play that kind of containing shot, you really have got to make sure you get your opponent snookered. So it looks like Lee may be forced into taking on a tricky long shot with this last red. The safety options are fairly limited from here. He's not really going to be able to avoid leaving some kind of shot on, so you can likely figure it's better just to go for this. Oh, great shot. Quality pot under a lot of pressure. Knew that if he missed that, the frame would likely be over. So, first blood to Lee Mccutcheon from Northern Ireland. He leads Daniel Hussain by 1 frame to 0. So, first look at Daniel Hussain's break as he gets us underway in frame 2. Not a bad break in the sense that he got a lot of power into the pack and the ball's moved around a lot. It's just, fortunately for him, nothing's gone in a pocket. I'd imagine that red balls will be his choice here. They're all dotted nicely around the table. Saw a slightly scrappy first frame, not entirely unexpectedly. Sometimes takes a little while to settle down into the match. This would be a good opportunity for Lee to start putting some pressure on. Winning a couple in a row would be a good statement of intent if he could make this clearance. Maybe just doing a little bit more than he needed to with the cue ball there. There were reds at the top of the table. It wasn't strictly necessary to screw down to this end. Just made the pot a bit more missable. Sorry, it's that technical glitch there. That camera obviously not refreshing. That clearly wasn't the scene. The balls haven't miraculously disappeared and the crowd all gone home. Balls are starting to disappear though under Daniel's control. Goes without saying that Daniel's going to be pretty keen to win this frame. He had a couple of chances in the first frame which he let slide. Best way to make amends for that is to step up and clear up in the next frame. He may have slipped a little bit further than he was intending to. I'm not sure if he's got a pot on. Find out whether this yellow goes past the red or if he's just going to have to cover the pocket. Yeah, he couldn't quite see enough to pot it, but that's a reasonable second prize. Lee would be wise to try and move that red that's in the bottom left hand corner of the table as soon as possible. That's going to start to cause him trouble if it's left there. It's usually a good idea to move things out early on where you've got a bit more time and also potentially where your opponent's got some balls tied up. The fact that there's a yellow in a reasonably safe position on the left hand side cushion means that he's got slightly freer rein just to get that red out of there. Good pot though. If you're going to go for that kind of shot, you've got to be sure of getting it, because you can see that he'd left on a long yellow. One thing he really doesn't want to do here is just leave that red in the bottom left hand corner of the table for too long. If you're going to go for a clearance, you need to have a plan for it. Be disappointed with that one. It was a questionable shot choice to remove the one from over that centre pocket, because it was quite usefully blocking at least one of these yellows and was a useful ball for Lee himself to use to get position later on. Particularly bad outcome to have missed it. So it looks like the key ball is going to be the one on the left hand side cushion just below the middle pocket. Potentially screwing back to leave a back double on that. It's not bad. He's left a little bit more angle than he wanted, although it's much better to be that side than the other. He's going to have to put a fair amount of pace into the cue ball, so just look at where the white's going to end up. In fact, electing to play, thought he might be looking to double it into the middle pocket. He's actually played a really good double into the corner, but just lost the white. Maybe it felt it didn't quite go past that red into the, that's now below the cue ball, into the centre. That always looked like it was going to be tight. Well, did everything but pot that. It was a really good effort. You can see Yellow's just rested right on the left of the corner pocket. He had good position on the black as well. So, a chance for Lee, not a complete formality. He is on the most difficult one of the reds, but he's quite close to his work, so it's not going to be easy to control the cue ball off this shot. Not sure about that one. That was a tricky shot to play. Anytime you're playing the length of the table across the face of the ball, that can just drift off slightly. You can end up quite a long way from where you expected. He was expecting to be leaving a total snooker behind the red that's nearest to the right middle pocket. So, good opportunity this for Daniel to get his first frame on the board. This almost straight black to the right centre. Safely deposited. So both players have had chances in the first two frames, but they've each managed to convert one of those. This guy scores now tied at 1 frame apiece.
Frame 3, lead to break, 1 frame all, time running.
So neither player fully in their stride yet, but they've both got a frame on the board, so hopefully that will allow them both to play with a degree of freedom now. Yellow ball potted off that break. Be a bad position, but for the two balls clustered together nearest the white, which are going to be relatively difficult to extricate. In an ideal world, he would have left that yellow that he's just potted. If he'd have been able to leave that on the table, he could have played that off the yellow and red that are together to clear out that bottom left-hand corner pocket. There wasn't really any way of doing that though, because he didn't have any other opening shot, so don't blame him for taking that one on.
30 seconds.
He's played a pretty good shot there. Got that pocket opened up and also landed on one of the other difficult yellows. Still got this issue though, bottom left. Really is a key aspect of break building and pool, not to leave the difficult ball too late unless you've got a pretty specific plan for it. So we screw across. not a bad effort. It was always going to be asking quite a lot to screw into that with enough pace to completely open the pocket up. This kind of ringcraft in a game of pool is something that you develop over time. I think playing against lesser opposition, this kind of approach of potting a few loose ones to start with would be okay. Against high-class opposition, you can sometimes be found out slightly. If you embark on a clearance and don't make it, then sometimes you can find yourself getting messed around for quite a long time. A sensible option there. You don't want to get caught in a halfway house. You really either want to leave the ball close to where it is, which was over the left hand corner, or else clear it out of that area altogether. So you're forced to punt it out of that corner, but got it over a different pocket instead. Not got that quite as tight as he wanted, although got the situation pretty well contained. See, the position of the red balls are all really pretty good. If Daniel gets any kind of open shot with the cue ball somewhere in the middle of the table, he should have no problem with taking out the clearance. Good effort from Lee. He wasn't that far off that double. See, he had good position on the other yellow. So this was the opportunity that I mentioned. Daniel's got 7 reds and the black, all in open play. Nothing really is in a remotely difficult position. This is pretty much a practice clearance, albeit the situation isn't going to feel too much like practice. So there's a good chance to settle into the match, having a series of easy-ish shots where you can just get your arm going, start building up some confidence. Both of these players looking pretty composed so far. I'm sure inside there's probably a degree of nerves, but neither of them are manifesting it so far. Not a difficult clearance, but still got to make the balls. Daniel's looking pretty steady on these so far, going about them in a sensible order. Looks like he's got in mind to leave the ball over the middle pocket as a route down to this end of the table. Another well-controlled shot. So hard at the moment to see where any trouble is going to come from. Drop this one into the middle pocket. Can play for either of the 2 reds down this end. That's a sensible shot, made sure he left himself enough angle. So, all looking fairly simple so far for Daniel Hussain. He just wants to get the cue ball a little way away from the side cushion to leave a comfortable shot at the black. That's the one he needed. So, after a slightly scrappy start, good clearance here from Daniel. Takes out the 8 balls in one visit. Goes ahead for the first time in the match. Daniel Hussain leads Lee Mccutcheon by 2 frames to 1.
frames to 1. Time run.
So Daniel Hussain to break off in frame 4, currently leading by 2 frames to 1. And that's a really good break. Ball's spread far and wide. The only ball that's difficult actually is the black. Absent the position of the black, you'd say that the yellows were the obvious choice because they're all in such open positions. Not ideal though, the black is being covered by a red.
30 seconds. Yellow's nominated.
Good effort. I can see why he went for yellows because they are positioned very nicely, and he had a fairly natural angle there to screw into the black. It's never going to be that easy to get the black a long way away from that side cushion. He's got it into a slightly better position, but the choices for potting it are still fairly limited. That's gone astray though. Trouble is when you play that kind of cannon that you don't really know quite where the white's going. And he slipped from prime position to a position where he's forced into a much more difficult long shot, which is why he missed that one. So that one red has got knocked to the left hand side cushion, although otherwise the red's actually in a pretty decent spot, so I think Lee will like what he sees as he comes to the table. Just to update you on the score on the other side of the arena, Lee Gilbert of England currently leading Jordan Synos of Ireland by 3 frames to 1 in the under-23 World Championship final. And a reminder as well about the feast of pool we've got coming up today, the men's team final. Will be following at around 10:30 this morning, and then the 2 showpiece individual finals, the men's and ladies individual finals, will be at around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Team final will be between England and France. England prevailing in what was ultimately a fairly comfortable win over Ireland in the first of our 2 semi-finals last night. France had a slightly tighter match against Malta. At one stage they looked to be in pretty good control of that match, leading 10-5, but then suffered a bit of a late scare, being held to 10-8 before getting over the line. Well, back in this game, things just got momentarily a little bit scrappy. Good shot there from Lee. Need a couple more good shots. Got a pretty good angle if he pots this red that's in the middle of the table to the bottom left hand corner pocket. Naturally screw the white across to leave the remaining red. Or indeed just roll it in. Thought he might screw on and off the right hand side cushion just to get slightly closer to this red. The difficult shot though is this one. Although the red is not far from the pocket, it's a question of how you get nice position on the black. Not really sure what nice position would particularly have constituted from the position it's in. I could elect to play the black off the right hand side cushion and off the yellow that it's nearest towards the pocket. Oh, in fact he had the angle for a double. That's a great shot. I don't think he could quite get that past the yellow. Good finish in the end from Mccutcheon. Took those balls well, particularly that quality double on the black. That's what he needed to level scores at 2 apiece.
Second visit. Yeah.
Grade 5, lead to break, 2 frames all. Time running.
Mccutcheon breaking off then in frame 5, having levelled up the scores in the last frame. Got a red ball down, although the balls haven't split up brilliantly. A lot of traffic at this end of the table. So electing to stick with the red balls. The only one that's strictly tied up is the one that's just above and to the right of the black. All the other ones could be potted. You could take this one in, the one just below the black, could take to the left centre next. Almost had the angle there to run into the black and the red and cannon that one out, but he felt like he didn't quite have enough angle, so playing through the gap to try and leave himself a shot at one of the balls in the top half of the table. It's not turned out quite perfect, but he still got a shot at this ball. Deciding between the longer straight shot to the far corner and very thin clip to the right middle. At least the ball hasn't got too far to travel here, so well, in fact, not sure whether he was deliberately electing for the containing safety shot or if he just missed that ball. Doesn't seem to be the tightest safety, but equally he did miss it by far enough that you almost wondered if he wasn't quite going for it full-blooded. Not sure if it's going to pay Daniel to pot too many balls here. The yellows, I would say, are probably tied up enough that this isn't that realistic an opportunity for a clearance at this visit, so it might be better to bide his time. forced to bide his time now by virtue of the fact that it doesn't really have a pot he can go for. Just skim off this yellow on and off the left hand side cushion and back behind the yellow. So the frame's still in the balance at the moment. The reds are in marginally better positions, but not very much to choose between it. It'd be quite useful to get this bottom right corner pocket covered. And that's a lovely shot from Daniel. Not only has he got the pocket covered, but he's got a great white tight in behind the yellow. Doesn't have to escape from this. You're allowed to play a deliberate foul in world rules. It may be sensible just to tap in behind the yellow. That's what it's done. I think that's the right shot, really. Force your opponent, you give your opponent 2 shots, but force them to waste the first of those 2 shots. Probably trying there to drive the white into the 2 yellows that are clustered together. He came pretty close to hitting them. Just any little touch on that would have opened those 2 up. Unfortunately, he hasn't quite got that. Can now look to cover the bottom left-hand corner pocket. Same shot, but played a bit harder. He's electing for the attacking option. Played a pretty good cannon to open those 2 up, but the difficulty was going to be that it was just never going to be that easy to end up leaving yourself a shot whilst playing that. So the frame closer to resolution now. The yellows are all in reasonably possible positions. Could go for an attacking option here with the reds. He could take this red along to the far right corner. Took the bull by the horns. But do or die, that kind of shot, because once you open things up and don't pot a ball, you're inviting your opponent in. Play the yellow just gently off the red, I would say. Well, it's kind of the right shot. I think probably put a bit, well, I mean, obviously as it happened put a bit more pace in than he needed, but there was always a risk that that ball was going towards the pocket. So, Mccutcheon asking for the foul snooker, so he couldn't see both sides of any of his reds. So asking for ball in hand. There might have been an argument there for taking a free ball. Could have nominated the yellow that's over the bottom right hand corner as a free ball. Potted it, kept the 2 visits and opened up that pocket. Don't think it will ultimately make too much difference. I wouldn't say the option he went for was wrong by any means, but different ways of going about it. He's played that pretty well. The important thing there was to make sure he got the white over to the left-hand side cushion, so he left an angle on this ball over the pocket. Just wants to play this now with left-hand side. Take the white off the bottom and right-hand side cushions. Just a little bit short of ideal position, because although he's on the red, there isn't a natural path to the black. You may have to play this with a bit more pace. Be disappointed not to clear up from that position. I think ultimately perhaps just got caught in taking the balls in slightly the wrong order. Although it was ultimately a miss on the red that cost him at the end, it was kind of gone wrong earlier on. He shouldn't really have missed the first visit with ball in hand. Should have set up a shot that he couldn't miss to make sure he kept the second visit. And then ultimately just left himself a bit too much to do to get onto the black. Easy, of course, to say with hindsight. No one is underestimating the task facing these two young men. It's been an enormously impressive progress to get to this final, and they've both handled themselves pretty well so far. Can't blame them for missing the odd shot.
Yellow ball's in play.
Wow, great shot in the end. Been a funny match in that sense. He's missed a couple of more routine opportunities, but has nailed some great doubles. It's been a lot better for the most part with the more difficult shots. So, great double on the red, good quality black to finish that up with. Mccutcheon now goes ahead by 3 frames to 2. Daniel Hussain then to break off in frame 6. Good split, but no balls down. So Lee Mccutcheon, hot on the heels of winning the last 2 frames, immediately back to the table. Not really much to choose between the players based on what we've seen so far. I think 3-2 one way or the other would be a pretty fair scoreline. I think in order to really get a grip on this match, both players just need to get a bit steadier with the almost with the more straightforward finishes. They've both played some pretty good shots, but they haven't looked absolute certainties to clear up from routine positions just yet. It's been pretty good with the doubles so far in this match, but that one just getting away from him. And that one just coming a bit wide for Daniel. I assume he was trying to play kind of off that red, but I don't think he was playing the shot quite like it turned out. So things momentarily just got a little bit scrappy. It's always the case when you play shots at pace like that, if they go in they look good. If you miss them you end up looking a bit silly because the balls are flying all around. Not necessarily the wrong shot, but just didn't quite come off as played. Might have been a case there for covering that pocket, and there may still be a case for covering that pocket with this ball that he's attempting. I'm not sure I love the idea of going for anything too attacking from here. There's enough problems with the yellow tight on the left and right side cushions that are going to be a difficulty. Don't think either of these players really want to turn this into a tactical battle, but there is something to be said for putting a bit of pressure on your opponent. See now, having gone for the clearance on yellows, the reds have now been opened up to the point that if Lee can pick out a good opening shot here, could be well away with these reds. I think that one will squeeze past the yellow to the top left hand corner, the one that's nearest his cue at the moment. And that's a good shot. We've seen him power in a few shots and some of them have gone a bit astray, but it was the right shot just to drop that in gently. Come back a little further than he needed to, but actually pretty big margin for error with this shot, so that doesn't matter too much. Just wants to try to bump the red off the left hand side cushion and then in off the yellow. Just caught it slightly wrong, caught the yellow first. Just needed to catch the cushion first then flick it out off the yellow. That's a case of hitting the ball too well. Hit that so cleanly that it's gone down the cushion and in. I assume he was playing to cover it, although actually no bad thing to have another shot, because if he could, well, he needs to do one of two things. He either needs to cover this pocket or he needs to clear it out completely off the red. It's very easy to do that. You get caught kind of between the two options. Although it was a decent pot to get the ball in, it just wasn't that useful to pot it unless you cleared the pocket altogether. In control though, that last shot Daniel's played has locked the frame up pretty well from his point of view. Lee just confirming with the referee George Bradbury that this red ball isn't touching the cushion. The reason why that matters is as long as it's not touching, he can play a legal shot just by rolling into it, whereas If it was frozen to the cushion, he'd need to drive another ball to the cushion as well to play a legal shot. In fact, ultimately he ended up playing the shot quite hard, so it became a fairly academic point. Quite useful to get this yellow out of that area, and it's been sensible. I was going to say the thing he doesn't want to do is move the red ball. So now every ball on the table pots apart from the red that's nearest to the cue ball. Not sure if that containing shot was going to be quite enough. It's always going to leave some kind of shot at a yellow. Daniel happy for now just to keep his yellows in play. Bit of a dilemma this, there isn't really a right answer. From Lee's perspective, you could make a reasonably strong case for tying this red and yellow up properly at the top left of the table. You don't really want your ball tied up, but the problem is if you don't get it tied up, there's a risk of your opponent clearing up. Most players hate tying up one of their own balls, but I think if he doesn't do something to get this situation a bit better locked up, he could find this frame slips away from him. So, chance now for Daniel Hussain. Well, he used both sides of the pocket, but did find the back of it in the end. So, ball over the corner pocket next. Just try and leave yourself an angle on the yellow to the middle pocket last that lets you get down for the black. The black certainly pots to the bottom right hand corner pocket. Looks like it may be a bit tight to the left corner. That looks pretty much perfect. Wanted to be just a shade off straight, and I think that's exactly what he's left himself. So, makeable black, a little bit thinner than he wanted, but shouldn't be a problem. So, black safely deposited, took those final 4 balls well. Daniel Hussain levels the score, it's now 3-all. Mccutcheon then to break, with the scores tied at 3 apiece. broken pretty well so far in this match. Red ball deposited on this occasion, although it's the yellows that have otherwise split up better. So no surprise at all that he's gone for the yellows. The only difficult ones look to be the two that are close together on the right hand side of the table. They're not quite a natural plant, and if they could be manufactured, they look like they might have just a bit too much angle to manufacture them into a plant, so they may have to look to touch into them at some point. Played that well, it's left this shot just off straight with an angle to come down the table, which is pretty much perfect. Could choose to play a cannon into the two balls that are together on the right hand side. Doesn't feel that's necessary. So just took his eye off the pot whilst focusing on the positional side of that shot.
30 seconds.
And that's a good shot from Daniel by blocking that pocket. Made life quite tricky for his opponent. Options a bit limited there. That kind of worked as expected, I guess. He wasn't going to get the ball much further away from the pocket than that. And that's a very well worked shot. He seems to have managed to get a total snooker from a position where that looked like it was going to be almost impossible. Not a particularly difficult snooker to escape from. It should be easy enough to hit either off the left hand side cushion, the one at the bottom of the table, or off the right hand side cushion, the two that are together. You can either try and nestle in tight to them or open them up with a bit more pace. So first good scoring opportunity for a few shots for Daniel Hussain. Everything in open play apart from the red at the bottom of the table. Find out in a minute what his plans are for the ball at the bottom of the table. Could choose to either play one of the other reds off that cluster to open the pocket up, or try and cannon into it from the other side. May be possible to drop. If he drops the white right onto the bottom cushion, it may pot directly without the need for a cannon. Well, he's got the cannon perfect. He's unfortunately missed the pot. The worst outcome though. Two yellows in safe-ish positions. may be space to play this yellow off the right hand jaw of the pocket and round behind the red. Good shot from Mccutcheon. And that could be a frame winning shot, because that's really changed things around now. That red's going to be fairly tricky to get out of there. Could make a case for getting that red out of there now, whilst one of the other yellows is slightly tied up. But that would be risky, because you'd be chancing your opponent not clearing up. From Lee's perspective, getting the yellow that's below the middle pocket into play as soon as possible is the priority. If he can just get that somewhere nicely in open play, he'll have really good control of this frame. So, options rapidly running out for Daniel in this frame. That's a decent snooker. He's got pretty tight to that red, which makes the escape a bit more difficult. This would be quite a valuable position to get 2 shots from. I think if you're Lee Mccutcheon, there isn't a great deal of point escaping from this snooker. The thing you really don't want to do is give away 2 shots and leave the cue ball in some kind of open position. If he was just to tap up tight behind this red, it takes that possibility out. Played it well though. I would normally say it wouldn't really have been a great result if he'd have potted that yellow, although if the cue ball had stayed exactly where it was, he would actually have had a shot at the other one to the middle, so a positive shot could have worked out pretty well there. Daniel sticking with the plan of trying to keep things safe. My same observation holds true. The one thing you really cannot afford to do is come out of this snooker and not hit one of the yellows, because you then leave your opponent a free shot to get that red out. The options are either to roll tight behind this red and give your opponent 2 shots deliberately but make him waste one of them, or make absolutely sure that you hit a yellow. See, that's really not what you want to do, because now, although it's still not an easy shot, Daniel's got a shot to win this frame, because if he can use the first shot of his 2 visits here to get that red out and then clear up with the remaining ones. A matter of personal preference whether you try and pot some other balls first. You've got to make absolutely sure though that you've still got the visit in hand and access to the red at this end of the table. I don't think that's the right way of playing that first shot. I know it was difficult to get that red out, but I think it would have been wise just to get the tricky red out with the first shot and then take your chances with the rest. This feels like a situation that's just going to get worse and worse if you leave the red there. This is not an easy position either way. I'm certainly not suggesting that there was an easy or guaranteed way of winning this frame. I think he's basically just got himself back into the position he was in a couple of shots ago. Played that snooker pretty well, but relying on his opponent giving him 2 shots again. My same observation very much holds true. I think the best shot here is just to roll tight behind this red, just get the cue ball nestled up against that red. There's really very little advantage in getting out of this snooker, so going for that option this time. You can argue whys and wherefores about whether it's a good rule that you're allowed to play a deliberate foul, but that is what the rule says. So, similar equation this time. Still don't see the value in escaping from the snooker, just try and leave the cue ball in a position where Daniel can't do anything with the first shot. Or indeed send another red down there. That's a sensible enough option as well. So pendulum swinging slightly. There was a moment where Daniel looked to be in control of this safety battle. Lee's worked his way back into it, and I think played a more sensible last couple of shots. The less balls you have on the table, the less options. Been forced into potting a couple of balls recently that ideally I think he'd rather leave on the table. He may just have to tighten this position up, just nudge into the red that's nearest to the yellow and just get that ball properly tied up. Yeah, that's the shot, I think. It's not a shot you love having to play because it's your own ball that you're tying up as well, but options a bit limited at this point. So not much Daniel can do here, clearly. Will his opponent be tempted into going for the attacking option? That's pretty good. 2 yellows now go. I don't think a containing safety is going to achieve very much here. There's not really any way you can leave the white that there isn't going to be a path to those yellows. Daniel could try and pot this red and then play a deliberate foul, push the other red over the pocket. Just needs to make sure that he gets this red tight in. He really wants to replace the yellow that's over the pocket with the red and not move anything else, but that's easier said than done very often in this kind of position. That's not bad. Getting the white close to the yellow is a pretty good idea because that cuts down what Lee can do with it. He's basically now just got one shot to get this yellow out of here and try and leave himself on it. Querying whether this is a foul snooker. It is a foul snooker. That changes everything. Slightly hard to believe it is looking at it from that angle, but the referee's got a better view than we have. So, made a world of difference the fact that he was able to pot that red. Daniel will feel he's been a bit unlucky there. When you get the white as close to your opponent's ball as that, it's generally fairly hard to leave a foul snooker. Unfortunately, it's not quite tight enough. So, a frame that could have gone either way. The most tactical frame by a long way of the match so far is won in the end by Lee Mccutcheon, who now leads by 4 frames to 3. So Daniel Hussain to break in frame 8, having let slip a frame that at times he looked like he was going to win in the last one. Both players had opportunities. Ultimately it was Lee Mccutcheon that got the frame on the board. Decent break, and a yellow ball was potted, but unfortunately from Daniel's perspective so was the white. So a pretty decent chance for Lee from this position. Ball in hand, the yellows quite nicely spread out. Just trying to hold the cue ball on the red to the left of the black. Just got a bit too much spin on it, caused it to arc through that gap rather than making direct contact. He was looking to hold position so he could pot the yellow below the black. So keeping up his great record with the doubles, and that's a fantastic cannon as well. That shot has really changed the complexion of the frame. Suddenly everything's open. Purposefully leaving himself a bit of angle on this yellow, wants to make sure that he can get the cue ball up. Wants to take a kind of path up the dead centre of the table pretty much. Leave the remaining yellow to the right centre pocket. Just come up a little bit shy with that one. If it had been straight on the yellow, it would have been easier to get position on the black. The natural angle is now taking the white towards the red that's above the yellow. I would suggest as well that the black doesn't go bottom left. That's going to make life a bit more difficult as well. If that's the case, it's got a lot more to do with the white. A bit of a problem now. Black evidently doesn't go directly to the bottom left-hand corner pocket. If the red below the black was a little bit further away from the cushion, you could play the black off the red into the pocket. It's a bit close to the cushion for that. You might just about be able to manufacture that shot, but you have to play it with a lot of pace. Don't know about that, so I'm not surprised he's going for a different option. Well, how's that for an attempt? Such a difficult shot, that doubling a ball into the middle pocket, but he came as close as he could have done without potting it. Glorious opportunity though for Daniel, because he's got so many balls to work with. Played a good shot there. This isn't the easiest escape, and anything other than potting the black is going to leave a pretty good opportunity on the reds. Good effort. Choices there were a bit limited. It was never a natural path to that ball. So, 2 shots, the ball's in an open position. This is Daniel's chance to get the scores levelled again. He's got a bit more pace on that than he wanted. Still got a choice of shots. In fact, he may have landed on this ball to the corner pocket, which actually worked out pretty well if he has. Wasn't playing it quite like that, but that's worked well. The only ball where position is remotely difficult is the one on the right-hand side cushion. It's not particularly difficult, but ideally you'd get fairly close to it. The others are all very accessible from most of the table. So I think that'd be a good chance now to get on the one on the right hand side, just play on and off the left hand side cushion and across the table. He's played that nicely. So, looks like it should all be plain sailing now, just drop this one in. Get a bit more confident now, played that shot with conviction. Still got the spare visit in hand, although no reason he would need it from here. He's taken these nicely. Wasn't the most difficult clearance, but he's made it look very easy. Black safely deposited, the scores are level again. Daniel Hussain 4, Lee Mccutcheon 4. Mccutcheon then to break in frame 9. The score was tied at 4 apiece. Plenty of power into the break, but the ball's not quite cooperating. Well, Daniel just looks at his options here, just to bring you up to speed with the scores in the under-23 final, which is taking place on the other side of the arena. Luke Gilbert of England is currently trailing by a single frame to Jordan Synott. Jordan Synott leading 6 frames to 5 at the moment in their race to 15.
Yellow ball's in play.
So a slightly quicker pace of play on that side of the arena, although still not too much to choose between the players. Both of these players will be pretty keen to start getting a few more first visit clearances on the board, both from the perspective that that helps the scoreboard along and puts some pressure on your opponent, and also showcases what you can do. Everyone's worked hard to get to this point, so it'd be nice to show off their talents in the final. We've already seen some good stuff from both players. That's a good positional shot, finding his way through that gap. So he just needs one more good positional shot. Get back for the yellow that's to the right of the cue ball at the moment. That's pretty good. So this looks like being a first visit 8-ball clearance off his opponent's dry break. Just this black now. He's taken these balls well, has Daniel. They were spread out nicely, but you've still got to pot them. So black safely down. 8-ball clearance completed. Daniel Hussain goes ahead again. It's now 5 frames to 4. So Daniel Hussain to break off in frame 10, having cleared from his opponent's break in the previous frame. Ideally love to keep that momentum going as we approach the business end of this match. Best of 15 frames, so first player to 8 will be lifting the title. It's a pretty good attempt to keep that momentum going. The balls are split nicely. Red ball potted. Red's clearly his colour of choice here. Neither player has held more than a single frame lead at any stage in this match. It's been nip and tuck between them. This could be the first opportunity for Daniel to open up a 2-frame lead. He's played that pretty well. I think he's got access to both of these balls still. They haven't blocked each other, so still in pretty good shape. Just looking at there where he would hold the cue ball. To put the left hand one first, just wants to make sure he doesn't snooker himself behind the yellow in playing this. That's pretty good.
30 seconds.
So just wants to screw back, make sure he leaves himself a shot at that red. Don't think you need to get too greedy and get too close to it, just make sure you've got a shot at it. He had a pretty clear path to get at that end, so big margin for error. So this could be the first clearance from the player's own break in this match. He's just cleared from his opponent's break in the last frame. Well, I can't argue with that. I'm not sure if he was necessarily playing down that side of the table, but anywhere in the middle of the table was going to leave himself a shot at the black. He's taking these balls well, really hitting top form now. Daniel Hussain makes his second total clearance in a row, this time off his own break, and now goes ahead for 2 frames for the first time. He leads Lee Mccutcheon by 6 frames to 4. When he last stepped up to break, he was leading. Well, when he last... I'll correct myself. When he last stepped up to break, the scores were 4 apiece. Since then, Mccutcheon hasn't played a shot and has lost the last 2 frames. That in off isn't going to help either. What I started off saying was, a moment ago, Lee Mccutcheon was 4-3 up and he's watched his opponent reel off 3 frames in a row. Didn't look to be too much to choose between the players in the early going. Never more than a frame between them, and the standard of play was pretty similar. Lee hasn't really done a great deal wrong, but Daniel's upped his game in the last couple of frames. And now, in first again, it's starting to look like he could really stamp his authority on this match. The scoreboard slightly lagging behind. It's actually 6-4 to Daniel Hussain. It's also playing much quicker now. That's often the case once you feel more confident. He's flying around the table. This will be quite some performance if he clears 3 from the break in a row. This is the kind of standard we expected for this match. It hadn't quite taken light in the early going, but definitely coming alive now. Well, first moment of adrenaline though, he's just overcooked that. He's played so consistently the last couple of frames. Everything's just looked really steady. That was the first time I just saw a little rush of adrenaline. No problem though. Putting them from everywhere now. So Lee Mccutcheon was 4-3 up. Could be about to find himself 7-4 behind if these two balls go. So just this black standing between Daniel and the 3-frame advantage. Black missed. Looked for all the world like it was going to be 7-3, and what a surprising miss. All the balls he's potted in the last 2.5 frames. That was one of the simpler ones. That's the pressure of the World Championship final though. We've seen so many great players over the years fall victim to that particular pressure. This is a very important moment for Lee Mccutcheon. There's a world of difference between 6-5 and 7-4. Well, you can hardly believe what's happened. I think in his defence it felt like that ball just turned at the end. I don't know if it just caught a finger mark. It looked like it was going to be okay, but then it just fell in. Although no real excuse for being anywhere near the pocket in the first place, so he'll have to take that on the chin at least. Well, what a strange couple of minutes. It looked like Daniel Hussain was going to complete his third 8-ball clearance in a row. He missed a surprising black and then immediately gifted the table back. So it's Daniel Hussain now that leads by 7 frames to 4. Only 1 away from his first world title.
Break 12, down to break. Lead 7 frames to 4.
Come on, Danny.
Time running.
Come on, Danny. 30 seconds.
Daniel Hussain then to break in frame 12. So, the stark equation facing Lee Mccutcheon. He needs to win all 4 of the remaining frames if he's going to lift this world title. Daniel Hussain now just 1 frame away from victory. He's cleared from his opponent's break, he's cleared from his own break, and he very nearly cleared again from his opponent's break. only to miss the black. Hussain is now the player we're seeing constantly at the table. Lee Mccutcheon has done not a great deal wrong, it has to be said, in the last few frames. The in-off in the last frame was a little bit unfortunate, but other than that he's just been frozen away from the table. Daniel's looking like he's suddenly finding the game very easy. There's some moments in the early going where like both players were slightly struggling to settle down into the match, but as we've got further through, both of them to a point have looked more comfortable, and certainly Daniel's really settled down into this. You make a case for playing these balls either way around. Looking at where, if he played the one into the middle, he's looking at how he'd cannon that yellow. He's actually landed quite nicely on the one at the bottom of the table there. Yeah, I think it's probably wise to take this one. He's landed fairly perfectly on it. And what a good shot he's played there. This has been high quality stuff. This match has turned on its head in the last few frames. It was nip and tuck the whole way through it, and then suddenly Daniel Hussain has come out at blistering pace in the last few frames. It's been relentless potting. Now just this black for his first world title. Black safely down. Daniel Hussain wins a quality match over Lee Mccutcheon by 8 frames to 4 and is crowned the 2019 World Junior Champion. Many congratulations to him on what has been a great performance. Lee Mccutcheon played his part in this match, but ultimately fell a little short at the end and really was just frozen away from the table. He was 4-3 up at one stage, and after that just didn't have anywhere near enough chances to get himself back into the match. He'll be disappointed, but great players played great to get to this point, and he'll be back. Daniel Hussain will be the one that takes the plaudits and the trophy today, though, for a ultimately fairly convincing victory by 8 frames to 4. Over on the other side of the arena, Jordan Synot currently leading Luke Gilbert by 7 frames to 6 in the Under-23 World Championship final. And then following the conclusion of that, we'll be bringing you live coverage of the men's team final, England against France. Thanks for your company in this one. We hope you can join us shortly for the team final.